Hello, fellow flight instructors. My name is Tim, and I could use your advice. You see, I'm a new flight instructor, and I know there are 4 forces acting on an airplane in flight, but I'm not so sure I know what forces are acting on a new student pilot while he or she is learning to fly.
Maybe it's motivation. The student has always dreamt of flying.
Well, motivation is key, and it is almost impossible to teach an unmotivated student to fly and fly safely.
That's true, but I'm sure there must be other factors to consider.
I wonder why my motivated student isn't booking flight lessons more often.
Well, Tim, holding down a good paying job in order to afford flying, and quite possibly attending to family obligations, could be limiting the time he or she has available for training.
My student keeps making excuses for every bad landing he makes. He has even blamed me for his poor airmanship.
Your student seems to be displaying classic defense mechanisms. Tim, you remember memorizing all those confusing defense mechanisms before you took your initial Cfi practical, don't you?
Okay, this little talk has really helped me put this flight instructing job into perspective. Now that I understand the factors that might be holding my student back, I can help my student deal with some of these issues, and I'll show a lot more understanding and empathy regarding issues I can't help with.
That's right, Tim. We flight instructors must always put the student first. It's very important to accept the student as they are. After all, we all come along with some baggage.
I see your point, and I've created a chart displaying the 4 forces of flight instruction to help make sense of the forces acting on my students. Hey, Tim again. I'd like you to meet my mentor, instructor, Dave. Dave has nearly 50 years of experience as a flight instructor. I often rely on Dave to have the best solutions to any of my CFI dilemmas. It sure is helpful to have a more experienced CFI like Dave as a mentor I can rely on.
Hi folks, Dave here. Tim is doing a great job as a newly minted CFI. He really has a passion for flying. I'd like to think that he got it from me. Tim explained to me that he is presenting this flight instructor review course, and has asked me to talk to you about professionalism. Professionalism by definition is, well, it's hard to define. But I can tell you, you know it when you see it. So, I put together some of my ideas for Tim, of what I believe professionalism is all about. I'll see you later in the course. Dave.
Professionalism. Responsibility. Setting the example. Emphasizing safety. Providing learning experiences. Effective communication. Enhancing motivation. Preparation. Student first, and professional development. Early in my training, Dave set the example for me, and a good example too. I wonder if he knew how intently I was observing his every move. Now I try my best to set a great example for my students, and now I wonder if they are watching my every move.
Yes, Tim, I knew full well you were watching what I did. And how I did it. I considered it part of the learning experience. And now your students are keeping close tabs on your behavior, so behave yourself, Tim.
Here's a little poem I learned in grade school. It has stuck in my memory all these years. Neither written word nor moral plea can teach young hearts what they can be, nor all the books upon the shelves, but what the teachers are themselves. Appearance matters. Your personal attire, grooming, hygiene, and posture will be noticed by your students. Your students will, initially, like it or not, base their opinion of your competence on subtle or not so subtle cues they perceive from your appearance, at least until they experience your performance as an instructor. Attitude matters. Students will quickly detect if you display a cavalier attitude towards safety, flight instruction, or their personal goals. Professionalism matters. Your strict adherence to checklists, procedures, and regulations will be emulated by your students. So will any tendency toward carelessness. Students learn from your actions as well as your words. Acceptance matters. Students won't care about how much you know unless they know how much you care. Well, while you folks are busy taking this course, I slipped off to Jamaica for a short vacation. So, from Montego Bay, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about safety. As Dave always said, safety is no accident. Hazard recognition and risk assessment are the means by which we mitigate total risk. Hazards include the aircraft, the pilot and crew, the environment, and external factors like Aunt Mildred yapping away constantly in the rear seat during critical phases of flight. During a recent takeoff roll, she said, "I wish you wouldn't go down this runway so fast, Tim." I don't think she really understands how this all works. She certainly doesn't understand the concept of sterile cockpit. Aeronautical decision-making. The systematic approach to the mental process used by pilots to consistently determine the best course of action in response to a given set of circumstances. Given a situation, one should consider their options, choose the best option, act on that option, and then evaluate the results. We'll look at the PAVE, DECIDE, 5 Ps, I'm safe, and hazardous thought doctrines, as spelled out by the FAA. Teach students to use mental checklists. It's all part of the aeronautical decision-making process. Students should understand the PAVE checklist. PAVE, Personal Minimums Checklist. The pilot. What's my experience? How recently have I flown in certain conditions? And my physical condition. More about that in the I'm Safe checklist. Should consider the aircraft. What are my fuel reserves? How much experience do I have in this aircraft or type of aircraft? Have I considered the POH aircraft performance charts? How is my aircraft equipped, and is it suited for this mission? The environment. What are the conditions at my destination and departure airports? The weather in general en route. And what are my conditions considering VFR or IFR weather-wise? Should also consider external pressures. Trip planning. Have I considered possible diversion or cancellation? Have I made alternate plans? And what personal equipment should I bring along? What might I need? The Decide checklist. Detect the fact that a change has occurred. Estimate the need to counter or react to the change. Choose a desirable outcome for the success of the flight. Identify actions which could successfully control a change. Do the necessary action to adapt that change. Evaluate the effect of the change. The I'm Safe checklist. Illness. Do I have any symptoms? Medication. Have I been taking prescription or over-the-counter drugs? Stress. Am I under psychological pressure from the job? Am I worried about financial matters, health problems, or family discord? Fatigue. Am I tired or not adequately rested? Eating. Am I adequately nourished? Alcohol. Have I been drinking within 8 hours? Within 24 hours? By law, I cannot have an alcohol blood content of more than 0.04% per 9117. Before you climb into a cockpit, that might be a great time to do a little self-assessment about your attitude and your students' attitude. Are you having any hazardous thoughts? Hazardous thoughts lead to at-risk behaviors. Consider anti-authority, invulnerability, impulsivity, macho, and resignation. The antidotes for each of these will be expressed and listed on the following pages. As a flight instructor, you must operate by a defined set of priorities. Put simply, fly and teach, not teach and fly. Flying is not a video game. There's no pause button. So aviate, navigate, communicate, and then teach. Always fly the airplane, even when the student has the controls. Day 1, Lesson 1 with a new student. Teach them positive exchange of controls the right way. 3 steps. You have the controls. I have the controls. You have the controls. Don't let them get away with doing it the wrong way, as in, I've got it. No, I've got it. Who's got it? I thought you had it. I've about had it, and you're going to get it. Whoa! Where'd he come from? Scan for traffic. Glance at instruments and charts. Don't fixate inside. Look outside, as well as inside. Use an effective scan of 10-degree increments and 3 seconds per interval. Turn on those lights and be seen. And when possible and available, use flight following radar services. Teach runway incursion avoidance with extra emphasis. Next, we'll discuss sterile cockpit, cockpit workload, head downtime, distractions, communications, wrong radio frequencies, unfamiliar airports, hold short instructions, lasso, line up and wait, and hotspots. Sterile cockpit. So, what exactly is a sterile cockpit rule? The sterile cockpit rule is an FAA regulation requiring pilots to refrain from non-essential activities during critical phases of flight. The FAA imposed the rule in 1981 after reviewing a series of accidents. The common thread to the accidents were flight crews distracted from flying by non-essential conversations and activities during critical phases of flight. Oh, what does the technical speak in FAR 121.542 and 135.100 really mean? Simple. Pilots and flight crews were talking smack or taking care of personal or company stuff when they were supposed to be flying the aircraft. Cockpit workload. Head downtime. Runways are sacred ground. Now, EFBs are great. They provide extra situational awareness, traffic, airport diagrams, weather, moving maps, etc. But while on the move during taxi operations, it's important to be heads up